In this video, I'll be reading to you the most useful and informative customer reviews of the most commonly purchased travel insurance plans. The goal of doing this is to give you real-world examples of insurance claims that were filed by real people, the quality of service that they received, and whether the claim was resolved. I sourced these reviews from a site that I highly recommend called Insure My Trip. It's a travel insurance comparison site that displays plans by 22 major providers, giving you the ability to filter and compare plans and read reviews by actual customers. And there are a lot of reviews, and I've filtered for the most useful ones to read to you in this video. Now, before we begin, a few disclosures. I am not a licensed travel insurance broker, but I am an affiliate. So if you appreciate the work I've done in putting together this video for you, you can support me by using the links in the description of this video when buying a travel insurance plan. The website will give me a small commission for referring you at no extra cost to you. You pay the exact same amount. So all right, let's begin. Once you're on the Insure My Trip website, you can click Get a Quote, and then it'll ask you a few questions before it displays it to you. First, it'll ask you where you're going. In this example, I'm going to put in Thailand. And then it asks when your trip is. So I'm leaving home on December the 14th and returning home on December the 28th of this year. My citizenship is United States, and I live in California. There's only one traveler, and in this example, I'm putting in the age of 45, which is kind of in the middle. And then they're asking how you're getting there. So you're taking a flight, which I've selected here. I'm not going on a cruise, and I am not renting a vacation home, so I'll leave these unchecked. The reason why they ask is because they can offer plans for you that include cruise protection or vacation home protection. In this case, I'm only taking a flight, so it's only going to offer me plans that cover flights. And then here, they're going to ask for your total trip costs. And in this example, you sum up all the expenses that you pay and can't be refunded by. So for example, plane tickets, tours, hotels, and stuff like that. So this will be included in the trip cancellation insurance so they can give you an appropriate quote. You click Next, and then it'll ask you when you start booking your trip. You just select the date and when you did it, and then you can view quotes. So now they're going to display a bunch of plans for you, and you can use a bunch of filtering parameters. In the left side, under plan types, I've selected comprehensive plans because I want to see plans that have reviews that talk about both medical claims and trip cancellation claims. And so with this one, I've also filtered it by the most frequently purchased. So that's this video where I will read the reviews of the most frequently purchased, the most popular plans. And those plans are Trawick, Generali, IMG, Travel Insured. I'm going to skip Generali here because I'm already covering it here. And World Trips I'm going to skip because it doesn't have enough plan reviews. And Berkshire Hathaway. So all these have at least 900 reviews. This one has 3,600. 1,600, this one has over 10,000. So to do that, we're going to start with Trawick International, and I'm going to click on Plan Reviews here. I'm going to read to you the ones that have the most useful reviews. And to do that, I'm going to filter by reviews that had filed a claim. So it's going to display that. And I will sort by the most helpful reviews. And these are reviews that have been thumbed up by other readers as being very relevant. So And I'm going to select to you the ones that I think are very useful, are indicative of the quality of the service, and give you insights into the nature of what is covered and what is not covered under these plans. So the first one is by Samuel S., who wrote this review on October 29, 2021 for a trip to Portugal. He gave Trawick International 1 star. He said, "Do not use Trawick at all. My baggage was delayed and I filed all the documents on time to the letter." And they said he would hear back in 10 days, but then they said he would hear back in another 15 days, another 15 days pass. And then they told him another 30 days. This is a nightmare where they just kept pushing and pushing the timeline that they'll get back to him. Along the way, he kept telling me to receive a status update and email, but he never once received emails and update, nothing at all. He had emailed absolutely 0 response numbers of time. I submitted airline baggage loss claim forms, boarding passes, filled out Trawick forms, everything early, on time and everything. Very disappointed, and he would not recommend this plan to a friend or relative. Now with these, often with negative reviews, the provider itself would come back to you, so we get to hear the cases from both sides. And they said, "Thank you for a review," and they said that unfortunately, baggage delay coverage is only available for the outbound trip, not for the return trip, which does make sense because if they're selling insurance, they want to sell plans under conditions that domestically so that they can know what's going on. They don't know what international airlines abroad, how they're going to treat baggage and all like that. So this is one thing to learn from Tradewick International, is that the baggage coverage only covers outbound trips, not return trips. However, what I found to be kind of suspicious was, okay, this guy said this whole process, there was a back and forth for 30 days. Well, then why didn't Tradewick just say that we only cover outbound trips? Why didn't they just ask whether it was the return trips? I wouldn't blame Tradewick for not covering the baggage because it clearly states it in their policy, but I would say this was a failure on their communications of not just simply telling the dude that we only cover outbound. And then the next one is by Gina, January 28, 2022, trip to the US. And this person said the claim was received on November the 4th, and it took 3 months to be paid. Sent several notes to check on it, but then eventually got paid. And so this person would recommend this plan to a friend or relative. So this claim that was made, whatever it was, took 3 months to process. So just to keep in mind here for Tradewick. The next review is by Rachel A, 2022, for a trip to Mexico. This person said that they had purchased this plan and the person had missed the connection and was glad to have trip insurance. But when I returned, I filed a claim. I submitted all the materials soon after returning from a trip, got an automated response saying that they were very busy and they would get back to me when I was next in line. This happens a lot for people. They get very frustrated that the customer service line is very backed up, and this is the case with Tradewick as well. Then got emails about 2 and 4 weeks later saying the same thing. Last I heard was them over a month ago. Zero updates about the claims progress. It's now been almost 3 months since I had to pay out of pocket for my missed connection. Very unhappy for this experience and policy. However, an update said that shortly after I wrote this review, my claim was swiftly processed, no questions asked. One hand, I appreciate that did not make me jump through a lot of hoops. On the other, it took 3 months, very similar to the previous one, and a bad review to get things moving. So there seems to be a trend here for Tradewick that on claims, even if they do pay it to you, it would take 3 months. Okay, so here's another one by Elia Carolina, gave 2 stars, said, did not cover emergency dental for $750 and later return flight all under $1,000. This is an insurance with no coverage. And the response was, as per your insurance policy, dental treatment that would be covered would be for damage to a sound, natural tooth. Since your procedure did not indicate an injury to your sound, natural teeth, your claim was denied. So this is another thing to keep in mind, that if you look at policies that cover dental, in this case, Tradewick covers damage to sound natural teeth. So if there was an accident, there was an impact, like a collision to your teeth that damaged it, this is something that would be covered. It wouldn't be like something that's on an unhealthy tooth already. Here's another one by Kathleen M. Was bitten by some insects. Our left arms were swollen and itchy. Went to a pharmacy, which they suggest Allegra and steroid creams to apply to our arms. Within 12 hours, swelling and itching was decreased, but because we did not see a doctor, they refused to reimburse us. And the response was, we are sorry to hear that your experience was frustrating. The plan purchase only covers medications prescribed by a treating physician. And if that wasn't clear, we apologize. So here we go again. If you get sick and you just go to a pharmacy to buy drugs, that would not be covered. With medical insurance, this goes to a lot of other plans too. You actually have to go to a real hospital and talk to a real doctor and have them actually prescribe you medication. It would not cover just any drugs that you buy from a pharmacy. So that's going to do it for Tradewick International. I hope that was illuminating to you about the time it takes to follow a claim and the details regarding seeing a physician and the tooth damage and all like that. Next, we're going to move on to Generali Global Assistance. This has over 10,000 plan reviews. This one was by Wendy R. on May of 2022. In all the times I've traveled and bought insurance, this is the first time I've had to use it and was pleased with your customer service. Dove B. on May 2022 for a trip to the UK said that our trip was interrupted due to COVID-19. Generali processed our claim punctually and compensated us promptly. Thank you, Generali, and they would recommend this. Here's a negative one though. Our 2-week insight tour to Croatia was canceled due to lack of guests. I was forced to cancel our Lufthansa Air because there was no reason to wander around Croatia without a tour. New York does not allow for a cancel any reason clause in the trip insurance. We lost our airfare. Generali did not accept our circumstances and did not refund the airfare. And so the response to that was, the plan you purchase includes approximately 20 different covered events under which we can provide coverage if you are forced to cancel the trip. The plan is unfortunately unable to provide coverage for every event that might cause you to cancel. The reason that they had to cancel their trip due to lack of guests. I find it hard to imagine that travel insurance would just cover something, a reason because there was no one else there. That's unfortunately is a risk that you may need to take. Carolyn T. on April 28, 2022 for a trip to the US said, unfortunately, our trip was impacted by a major storm. I purchased coverage to protect non-refundable condo reservations and costs for travel delays. My suggestion is to make sure you keep all your trip documentation receipts, including costs for travel changes. The online claims process was fairly easy and I was reimbursed in a reasonable amount of time. I would not hesitate to use them again. So far, as we've read, Generali has been very efficient in processing people's claims promptly. Margaret M. on February for a trip to Austria said that I filed a claim for expenses incurred when a delayed connecting flight caused me to miss a transatlantic flight, resulting in an overnight stay. My expenses were somewhat unusual, visas, COVID testing, so I wasn't sure they would be covered, but was happy to be fully reimbursed. Pamela said, regretfully, I had to cancel this trip because of a hip issue that is requiring a hip replacement. I could not manage walking or traveling. Generali was great to deal with. Helpful staff, easy process, and follow through with full refund. Naturally, I needed to provide documentation like a physician letter, treatment history, etc., but absolutely no pushback and received full refund promptly. Very satisfied. So it seems like if you're covered under their conditions, Generali will handle it for you promptly, unlike Trawick, which even if you do get covered, it takes on average 3 months based on the reviews that I've seen. Dennis for a trip to Iceland. Very disappointed in Generali Global Assistance and its deceptive marketing. We included and paid for cancel for any reason except for a listed covered event in our coverage. We canceled it per our own personal misgivings about COVID circumstances. While there were pandemic warnings about international travel, there were no restrictions about our travel. This was misleading business, and we're very dissatisfied with the company's performance. Not only will we never use it again, it should be a warning to any members of the general public who may ever consider employing Generali Global Assistance. The response was, you want to guess? The plan has a variety of different covered events. We can provide. Okay, so at least Trawick does some personalized responses to this. This one, they just come up with canned responses and yeah, it seems very impersonal. Next, we move on to IMG Travel Insured SE with 1,600 plan reviews. The most useful review, with 10 people finding this review helpful, was a negative one. My wife passed away before our trip. IMG made the claims process overly difficult and time-consuming. Representatives of IMG were not truthful with me about needing more information and correspondence that IMG supposedly sent me. As soon as I threatened legal action to get my claim paid, my claim was paid. Next one is by Adrian H. on October 2020 for a trip to Spain. Overall, I was sort of satisfied with this policy. Most of the expenses we incurred as a result of sickness while traveling were reimbursed promptly, but unexpectedly, not all. The sickness section of this policy covered ambulance, all direct medical expenses, and 2 hotel nights for recovery. Trip interruption section covered the cost of new airline tickets. Surprisingly, though, none of the other approximately $320 expenses resulting from my sickness, e.g. taxi from hospital to hotel, meals, replacement airport bus tickets, additional parking fee, basic clothing, none of which were covered. I mean, yeah, I guess these were incidental things that I don't know if you really should expect policies to cover that. This is by Robert for a trip to Canada. My wife fell off a horse and was taken to the ER with 3 fractures. She's recovered now. Flight was scheduled to leave with 5 nights in New York City and a cruise from New York City to Montreal. So that had to be all gutted those plans. We received a check for the full claim. They covered the full cruise, less port charges, taxes, and we got a prior refund. 5 nights at an Airbnb in New York City that was non-refundable, rebooking fees from United Airlines, prepaid car that was supposed to pick us up at the airport, and 2 theater tickets that we had paid for. All in all, I am a very happy camper. Because the wife fell off the horse, that was a proper reason to gut all those plans, unfortunately, and that was very costly, and they covered it. Very good. All right, so we'll move on to CF Travel Insured International. So this one was submitted by Thomas on April 2022 for a trip to Italy. My trip was interrupted by companions contracting COVID. I had to leave 2 days early. My airline charged over $500 to change my ticket, while my companions on a different airline actually got small refunds on their ticket changes. My insurance covered the increased costs of my return air ticket. The claim process took about 6 weeks. Ethan R. on April 13, 2022 wrote that with this latest trip, the airline canceled our flight home and could not get us on another flight until 2 days later. The airline said they had so many people affected that they were not able to provide hotel or food vouchers. My wife and I were left with huge out-of-pocket expenses. I called the Travel Insured Assistance line from the airport and told them what was happening. They looked up my plan, confirmed that I'd be covered, and told me exactly what documentation they'd need from the airline and how to file a claim when I got home. When I got home, I filed a claim online and submitted receipts for transportation, hotel, and meals during the time we were stuck. It took a few days to hear back, and then I got an email saying it was approved and asking me to input my banking information for the electronic transfer. 1 day later, I had the full amount of the claim deposited in my account. Additionally, I like to say that everyone I spoke to on the phone was kind, friendly, helpful, and provided me with all the info I needed to ensure a successful claim. Based on my experience, I will continue to use Travel Insured International for my future trips. However, Viviana says too slow to process claims. Customer service teams are not at all on the same page, get different answers every time. Too many repetitive documents requested. All PDFs need to fill in manually. Took almost 5 months for them to adjudicate the claim. Their customer service is terrible and they can't commit to any timelines, and their people are overloaded with claims. I would avoid this company at all costs. So Daniel on 2021 for a trip to Mexico says, everything was good. I fell down and broke bones. Well, that was not good. It was a good private hospital and all charges were paid by the insurance. Did not state the timeline of the claims, but the person seemed happy about it anyway. Carl on 2021 for a trip to Australia said that very pleased. We had to interrupt our trip halfway because my husband had a heart attack while on Kangaroo Island. Okay, transferred to Adelaide, and there were 2 stents placed in his heart. We were reimbursed for the unused trip portions for extra transportation costs and hotel costs, since we had to stay in the country an extra 10 days before he was allowed to return to the US, but we weren't allowed to continue with our scheduled tour. The only reason I gave 4 stars was on the promptness of the claim processing, is that it was about 4 months after returning from our trip that the claim was finally settled and the check arrived. Next, we go to the final one, Berkshire Hathaway. We start off with Hal B. 2017 for a trip to Nicaragua. I developed chest pain and was admitted to the ICU in a small hospital 2 hours from Managua. We called the customer service line and they took care of all the logistics to fly me home to Fort Lauderdale in a Learjet Air ambulance the next day. Very pleased and grateful for the service I received. So far, so good. And in 2021 for a trip to the US said, long story short, our Sunday flight home from vacation was canceled by the airline. They weren't able to get us on another one until Tuesday. We had to be back for work school and ended up paying $1,500 out of pocket to get home on Sunday as we had planned. The airline was terrible to us throughout the whole ordeal and I was so angry. Then I remembered the insurance that I purchased. I submitted a claim with my receipt as soon as we got home and was reimbursed for our out-of-pocket costs within 5 weeks. easy peasy, definitely recommend. So easy, but took 5 weeks. Okay, fair enough. Karina, 2021 for a trip to Mexico. My husband caught COVID during our trip to Mexico, so we could not return on time and had to change our air tickets. This plan covered all fees to change the tickets. It was very easy to file a claim, and the claim was processed very quickly. Here's a not so positive one. I purchased travel protection from these guys as I assumed they were a reputable company. Okay, let's see. I could not get through to any emergency line as their line kept dropping after going through the voice prompts. They haven't responded to my emergency email in days. I have incurred unnecessary costs and severe delays on top of an extremely painful situation. And that was a response, just apologizing in general. Amy, 2017 to Uruguay, said that my son broke his wrist while we were out of the country and the claims process was very easy, so she would recommend this. Inderjeet, in 2021 for a trip to the Dominican Republic, says, outstanding company. We had a trip delay issue. I would never have imagined they would be so efficient in processing my claim. I have dealt with horrible companies from this site in the past, but now I will never go with any other company for insurance needs after this experience. Hopefully we never have to file a claim again, but their handling was all online and painless. And she would recommend this plan. Let's end this with a not so positive one because we've been getting positive ones for Berkshire Hathaway. Said, I bought my plan around January 2020 for my trip to Hong Kong, but due to the coronavirus in China, I've had to cancel my trip. I was afraid I would not be able to work after I came back from Hong Kong due to the virus, and they've canceled my entire trip. I called the customer service rep, and they told me this coronavirus was not covered with my insurance. I mean, that's why I bought this insurance for. Anyway, but I do not recommend the trip insurance. This is a waste of money. So yeah, there are some policies that do not cover the coronavirus. So you got to check with that too. So I hope that after watching this video, the sun has set and it's all dark now, you've become a more informed insurance buyer. Again, if you appreciate the work that I've done here, you can support me by using the links in the description of this video when buying a travel insurance plan. Thank you so much for watching and safe travels.